The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T was the first Dr. Seuss movie ever made, and it was made in 1953. Oh, this is the hat that Tommy Reddick and all the little boys in the dream sequence wore. Ted Geisel was better known as Dr. Seuss, and he was a very famous storyteller, author, as well as a cartoonist. And he met Stanley very early in his career. And Stanley always loved to discover new talent and bring them to the screen for the very first time. Mr. Geisel had an idea about making this film, and Stanley hired Alan Scott, and Mr. Geisel and Mr. Scott developed the screenplay. This film is a Technicolor musical fantasy. Its imagination is enterprising. Its music and lyrics are sharply satiric. And its sets and costumes were designed by Stanley's longtime set designer, Udi Sternad. This musical is like no other musical that's ever been made in Hollywood. This film was way ahead of its time. Stanley had some regrets. He didn't feel the studio had given him enough money to make it the way he wanted to. In spite of that, it's still a vision to behold. Having just run this film for myself recently, I can assure you it's a beautiful Technicolor print and thoroughly enjoyable. This was made way before we had the technology that we have today. I mean, where else could you see 500 little boys wearing this hat? There's a delicious performance by Hans Conried, who plays a wicked Dr. T, but he really is more comedic than he is frightening. Frederick Holliday has composed a magnificent children's opera. It has taken almost 40 years for another Dr. Seuss movie to emerge on the scene. And in spite of those newer sensations, The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T has still remained a popular film cult classic.